You know, back in the 90s, some young people and then followed by some older people began wearing a bracelet around their wrist with the letters WWJD. Stands for, what would Jesus do? It's a great concept, a wonderful reminder, and a great tool for witnessing. But then some enterprising marketing genius turned a well-intentioned concept into a fashion. Be careful when something becomes a fashion. Be careful of something becomes popular. So much so that I saw on television a couple of years ago, a group of young people were wearing these bracelets, and the guy was asking them, the television man reporter was asking them, do you know what WWJD stands for? They didn't have a clue. Absolutely didn't have a clue. But in a similar way, when God told Israel that they are to love the Lord their God with all of their heart, with all of their soul, and with all of their mind, they were reciting those words. They believed those words. Jewish theologians through the years took those words out of Deuteronomy and out of Numbers, and they put them together. And they called it the Shema, which comes from the Hebrew word to listen or to hear. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God. And by the time of Jesus, these Pharisees were reciting this Shema twice a day. Twice a day. But their lives were far from loving God. Twice a day they would recite, "We love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and mind." And yet, when the Lord of glory came, they rejected him. They crucified him. I want you to hear me right on this one. What they were saying with their lips, they were denying by their very lives. What they were declaring publicly, they were denying in practice. But I'm going to hasten to tell you that is not unlike so many of Christians who of our day. They say, "What do you mean by that? What do you mean we're not unlike the Pharisees?" I want you to listen to me. Often we sing the songs, but we deny the words of those very songs every single day of the week. In our practice, in our dealing with people, we deny those very words. We are doing exactly what the Israelites were doing when they were reciting the Shema twice a day, but the rest of their life has nothing to do with loving God. I often catch myself singing a hymn or a chorus, and then I stop. I genuinely do. I stop, and I begin to ask myself, do I really mean this? Do I really intend to keep these words? Do I really intend to keep these promises? Do I really live up to these words that I'm uttering? God is listening. And the Bible said that we will give an account to every idle word that we have spoken. We sing, "I love you, Lord, more than anything." Do you really? I often ask myself that question. Do I really love God more than anything? Do I really love him above everything, above everybody? Do I really love him, or just am I singing along because it's a nice song to sing? When we sing, "Mold me, make me," listen to me. I often stop singing and I ask myself, do I really want him to mold me the way I don't want to be molded? Wives, do you know what you're saying when you say, "Mold me"? You're saying that I'm going to submit to my husband's spiritual authority, whether I agree with him or not. That's what you're saying. Husbands, you know what you're saying when you say, "Mold me, make me"? You are saying, I'm going to put my wife's interest above mine every time. Young people, do you know what you say when you're singing, Lord, make me, mold me? You're saying, I will obey my parents unconditionally. Oh, it's easy to sing. It's easy to sing. Just as it was easy for the Pharisees of the time of Jesus to recite the Shema twice a day. But their lives were far from loving God with all their heart, all their soul, all their mind. I want you to look at Matthew chapter 22. I am the God of Abraham, the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. When the crowd heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now let me tell you the real text, what the real text said, okay? You see, Jesus has been hard on the Pharisees. Do you know why he was hard on the Pharisees? Because he didn't like their hypocrisy. He did not like the fact they say one thing with their mouths and they live another. He did not like the fact that they were trying to manipulate him. They were great manipulators. And they tried to manipulate Jesus, and he didn't like it. Jesus was so compassionate over the poor, over the wretched, over the needy, over the person who's burdened with sin and want to repent and turn to him. But he was hard on the Pharisees because of the hypocrisy. And that is why he called them all kinds of names. He called them like sepulchres. He said, from the outside you look clean and you look painted and you look good, but from the inside you are full of dead man's bones. So basically what the Pharisees forever, if you read carefully in the Gospels, forever they were trying to trick Jesus. That's the word testing really means trick. They were trying to trick Jesus. And forever trying to find a way to trick him, to get him to fall. Why? When they couldn't, you know what happened? They got together, they had a conference, they had a consultation, and decided to send a lawyer. That's what the word is. The expert on the law is a lawyer. That's what it says there. Now, but before I go any further, now, you know some of my dearest friends are lawyers, so I just want you to forgive me ahead of time here. Verse 34 and 35 of Matthew 22. But they heard that he, Jesus, had put the Sadducees to silence, so they gathered themselves together. And then one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him, to quiz him, to trick him. All the same. Look, I really believe it's good to have lawyers. I mean, otherwise there would be no one here to explain to the rest of the population why do we need lawyers. During the Six-Day War, some of you remember the Six-Day War, 1967. How many of you remember that? In 1967, the reason Israel won over all its Arab neighbors because of the ingenuity of General Moshe Dayan, was a great strategist. And here's how he planned the war. He got all the conscripted people, but he put the lawyers right in the front line. No, he didn't want to get rid of them. They asked him why. He said, because when I say charge, they do it with passion. There is a Jewish parable that goes way back, a Jewish parable that goes something like this, that two farmers claimed to own the same cow. While one of them was pulling on the head of the cow, The other one was tugging on the tail of the cow. The cow was being milked by a lawyer. Well, here it is in the Bible in black and white. A lawyer came to trick Jesus. Rabbi, what is the greatest commandment of all? He asked him. What do you think they were doing? They thought that if there's anybody who's a match for Jesus, it would be a lawyer. And the purpose, of course, is to find something by which they can accuse Jesus of heresies and then discredit him. The purpose, of course, was to expose Jesus as an imposter and turn people against him. That's what they're trying to do. But without a second's hesitation, Jesus turns to that man and to the rest of them, and he basically told them what they have been reciting twice a day. He didn't give them anything new. He said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Hear me right on this one. If you think that during this series of messages of how to love Jesus, if you think that I am going to give you some brilliant insights that you have not known before, if you think that I'm going to give you some new revelation, if you think that I'm going to stand here and mesmerize you with some unique perspective, if you think that I'm going to stand here and fascinate you with my brilliant perceptions, if you think that I'm attempting to overawe you with some new knowledge, if you think any of that, you misunderstood the entire series of messages. If the Lord of glory answered the Pharisees by telling them what they already know, to do what they already know in their heads, who am I to give you anything new? Or to tell you give you any new idea, any new revelation? I'm here only to exhort you and exhort me to practice in life that which you know in your head. But how do you love Jesus with your mind? How do you love him with your mind? First of all, what is the mind? The mind is the seat of your intellect. The mind is the seat of your determination. The mind is the seat of your willful vigor. The mind is the seat of commitment. Why then does love begin with the mind? Why? Because above all else, love begins, ends, and continues with commitment. That's what love is. You hear it any other way, that's not love that the Bible talks about. In marriage, the very core of love between a husband and a wife is not the looks or the physical beauty. That can change and does change. It is not the emotions or the romance, because they can go up or down. It is not the feelings, because they are mercurial. It is not the physical strength, because that can and will deteriorate. It is not the possessions, because they can have wings and fly. But love's beginning, continuing, sustaining, and ending through the power of commitment.